At one point, everyone who has picked up a pack of cards have wanted to build their very own deck. It seems to be one of the more universal experiences. Taking the cards that you have, the cards that you manage to collect either through luck or wit, and transforming them into a deck of your own. It's a symbol of creativity and resourcefulness, a symbol of pride. But eventually, a player gets jaded. A player gets a bit more competitive, and now you want to win. This doesn't happen to everyone, but that's alright. Not everyone sees competition in everything. And now, deck building changes. With your options opened up, so does the decision making. Now you are no longer just trying to scrounge together a good pile of cards. Now you're building to win, which is a completely different beast. I won't pretend that net decking doesn't exist, but if you're looking to compete, really compete, you're going to have to make an original list. Most competitors don't leak the results of their intricate playtesting until after they've placed in the event. So if you want to compete, or just make your deck your own, what are the concepts behind competitive deck building? What do you need to succeed in this aspect of the game? Before we get into concepts, there's one thing that you have to do. First of all, you need to find an identity for your deck. This is obvious, but I think still needs to be said. If you're playing to win, your deck needs some kind of identity or strategy. Whether it be building around a specific card, or building around a specific archetype, or even building around a specific game speed or playstyle. Before you get to the nitty-gritty of what cards to cut and what cards to keep, you need to have a solid basis to build upon. Whether it be aggro or Sky Striker or Stall or Demon Seed, it doesn't matter, just pick something. And of course, which strategy has potential for winning changes from time to time, format to format, so you want to make sure you do your due diligence there too. And now, after lots of meticulous research and testing, meta-analysis and listening to opinions, or you just pick something you liked, you finally decided what deck you're going to build. Now that we've gotten that out of the way, we can get into the meat and potatoes. When building a competitive deck, or even a powerful deck, you're building towards two different things. Two concepts: consistency and versatility. Card games are inherently variance-based games. The draw is random, the opening hand is random, and even who gets to go first is random. But randomness and variance are not conducive to winning. So are all the people who choose to compete in a genre like this crazy? Maybe a little, but they still need to do something about the variance. We want games to be determined by who's the better player, not who gets luckier. So players try their best to beat the variance. Now this is something that is very difficult to do in gameplay, but in deck building is where you can directly tackle it. No matter how perfect your list is, no matter how you construct your deck, eventually you are going to brick and open a completely unplayable hand, and maybe lose off of it. But you can do your best to reduce the odds of that happening through your deck building. And the way we can put that objective into words is by calling it consistency. You want your decks to be as consistent as possible, building a deck in a way that reduces variance, making the average hand your deck pumps out powerful and playable. So how does a deck builder achieve consistency? You can do it through cards that draw more cards, tutors that search out specific cards, and redundancy. And another way to do it is to just lower the size of the deck, which is why in the vast majority of cases, where players have a choice in deck size, they try to play the fewest number they can. Unless of course there is an advantage to playing more cards. These two come to mind. Once we get to individual card choice, that's where the skill expression comes into play. Which cards do you want to run, and how many of each do you want to run? The strategies may present obvious cards that you need to run, but how many? As long as a card isn't restricted by something like a ban list, not only do you have the binary choice of run or don't run, you have to decide how many of them you run. Even if the card is an incredible value generator or combo starter, how many of them should you run for maximum consistency? Here's an example. As demonstrated by some of the background footage I've shown, I am a hero player, and for quite a while now, the best hero deck to play is Omni Hero, or Hero Pile. Basically, playing with all heroes: Elemental, Destiny, Vision, Evil, Masked. We're getting off track here. The point I want to make here is about a specific card that is ran in this deck. Elemental Hero Stratos is a card with a lot of history on the ban list, because it's a good card. On summon, you get to either search your deck for any hero monster, or you can clear spell traps for each other hero you have on the board. The second effect is sometimes used, but the card is mainly played for the first effect, for the tutor effect. So this seems like a really good card, a card that you want to play maximum copies of, a card that would be a 3 of, as they say. But the thing is, even a tutor as good as Stratos isn't always played as a 3-of. The list I've seen recently, and even the list I run myself, all before Supreme Darkness, only run 2 copies. Even something as good and obvious as Stratos isn't an auto max included in a deck. And if you want to know the reasoning, it's because it needs your normal summon. And it's decisions like that that a competitive deck builder needs to make in order to craft a perfect list. Which cards do you run, how many of the card to run, what to keep, and what to cut. And it's up to the individual to test and squeeze out each last ounce of consistency that they can. Everyone is vying for the best list, and that might mean the most consistent list. Here are some fun examples of consistency and the ways players in different card games try to pull it off. In Magic, aggro decks run less lands because they don't want the game going long anyway. They can win the game before they need their later land drops, which gives them more room to run their aggressive damaging cards. There are also cards in Magic that allow you to cast them for free if they're in your starting hand, and because of the way that Mulligan system works, you can trade off hand size to cheat some mana. Use the consistency of the Mulligan to your advantage. In Pokemon, decks that revolve around 2 prizers can choose to play a 1-prize Cleffa. The Cleffa lets you fill your hand until 7, and if all your other Pokemon are 2 prizers, they need to knock out 3 of them anyway, which means you get a free body and free consistency. And because the tutors that are usually ran can also find Cleffa, you don't even have to worry too hard about missing it. In Yu-Gi-Oh!, consistency means making sure you find a starter, a card that has big combo potential and gets you to all your other cards. So, as long as you can get to a starter, you're good. So if you have such an influx of starters, you can run something like a 60-card deck. These make it consistent enough for it to break traditional rules. And going back to the hero example, the correct number of Vision Hero increase is 1, because that's all you need. But if you draw it, one of your best cards, Ferris, is turned off. So some players are willing to trade overall deck consistency to get more consistency with this card's interactions. And in Hearthstone, there are tutors, but you don't get to choose. The card may draw a specific card, but if multiple fit the description, it adds even more variance. So instead of deciding what you want when you play the card, you decide what you want when you build a deck. And there's also ETC, a card that takes the place of 3 cards for just 1 deck slot. You get 3 cards without needing to sacrifice the consistency of running all of them. That's the first philosophy. You want decks to be consistent. And the second philosophy is versatility. Card games are multiplayer games. Whether you're playing against 1 opponent or 3 opponents, you have to play against your opponent's cards. And in most cases, a deck won't be completely filled out by just cards pertaining to your strategy. You'll have empty slots to fill in. This isn't always the case, but just indulge me here. What cards do you put in to finish the deck? There are many good cards that don't fit the strategy a deck is built towards, so how do we pick out which to put in? You decide by looking at the state of the game, the most effective tactics available, the metagame. In order to choose your strategy, you already know what's currently considered good. You have an idea on what decks and strategies your opponent would be running, and you can take that knowledge and use that to fill out the rest of your cards. Versatility is all about building around the metagame. The strength of a strategy is relative. If everyone else is playing control, then playing an aggro deck may either be a good idea or a bad idea. Depends on what game you're playing. But the point is, your deck needs to do well into the metagame, including in the Ditto. And while strategies naturally match up well and poorly against one another, you can still help your matchups by slotting in specific tech cards. By running specific checks and answers, you can make your deck better suited for the meta, making the deck more powerful. And some of these tech cards may be more adjacent to your strategy than others. Another quick side note, some games allow you to bring a sideboard, cards you can choose to bring in between games, and that's where a lot of your versatility cards go. But because not every game allows for this, and sideboard only comes in past game 1, it's still important to integrate versatility in your main deck. And to be consistent here are some fun examples of versatility in different card games. Magic has a lot of cards that just say no to your opponent. Chalice on 1, Pithing Needle. So many very specific ways for your opponent to not be able to win the game. And back to aggro decks. Some aggro decks can bring in anti-life gain, which just feels mean. In Pokemon, due to the dominance of one plant that requires no resources to set up, players have begun to run supporters like Brock to get past the item lock. You can't play your Nest Balls or your Buddy Buddies, so you'll have to burn your supporter for turn. In Yu-Gi-Oh!, While there are a couple hand traps that are always good and make sense in every list, Ash, Imperm, the rest of them are a bit more specialized, so you could run something like a Ghost Bell, or something like a Droll and Lockbird, or even something as devious as No Material. Okay, I just wish this card was good. And in Hearthstone, in order to prevent players from getting value from their Highlander cards, cards that have additional effects if they only have one copy of any card in a deck, some would play this bird, the Albatross, and turn off their full heals and genies. So consistency is important, and so is versatility, but they don't really complement one another very well. If you want more consistency, you'll have to sacrifice some versatility, and vice versa. More cards for consistency means less room for meta answers. More meta answers means less cards to advance your core strategy. Now, you could argue that one aspect is more important than the other, and I agree that there are valid points in both departments. If I was asked, I'd probably value the former over the latter, but the perfect list doesn't exclusively have one or the other. The potential perfect list needs to strike a balance between the two, have enough consistency where you can properly execute your own strategy, while also having enough versatility in order to match up well against other decks. The first part is making your single player game plan better, while the second is all about improving your multiplayer interactions. Deck building is half the battle, half of the way that a player can express their skill. Go look at the deck lists of a top 8. Even though there are multiple players running the same strategies, the same archetypes, each of their lists will be slightly different. The difference may only be a card or two, but the difference is there. And over the course of a long tournament, that difference may be what put them in the top 8. Probably not, but it certainly helps. So if you're trying to make the best deck you can build, like anything competitive, it'll take a lot of work. But competing isn't for everyone, and even players willing to compete aren't willing to invest in a genre that is inherently luck-based. I mean, the most popular format for Magic is a casual format. But if you want to win just a little bit more, if you want to make your deck just a little better, keep these two concepts in mind. You want less bad cards, and you want cards to stop their good cards. Just remember those two things, and you too can become the king of games.